What lessons have you learned from your relationships? Never lose yourself in a relationship. Keep your friendships going, keep doing your hobbies, and things you used to do before that make you feel good. It is important for 2 reasons, IMO. The relationship with your SO will benefit when both parties have a full personal life. Convos will be better, you being happy will make you more fun to be with, and you'll not put all the focus on your relationship, which can cause clinginess and imbalance. If the relationship ends for any reason, you will not find yourself in a huge void when your life will seem to be empty and meaningless. You will still have things in your life that make you happy and will be able to move on somewhat better/faster.
I get that. A while back, a friend got really into their relationship and basically dropped everything else. They stopped hanging out, gave up hobbies. Eventually, things didn't work out. They were lost for a bit, struggling to find themselves again. It's tough when you rely so much on one person. Keeping your own interests is key. It helps you stay grounded, no matter what happens.
It's more what I've learned from other people's relationships compared to my own. Passion fades, but if you can sit and joke with someone in the lulls, the passions will always come back. My wife is my best friend. We've seen our friends' relationships crumble when the sex ends or becomes routine, because that's all they had in common. There's no other foundation to the relationship. After 12 years, married for 3 and Amp, 1/2. I've never been more in love with her. We just found out that she's pregnant, and I couldn't be happier. Every time I think I can't like her anymore, she surprises me somehow, and the like turns into a much deeper love every time. Today was her birthday. We used to use a day like today to get pissed and wander around with no care in the world, but today we just went for a walk and had dinner, sans alcohol, at our favorite pub. We just talked for hours instead of drowning our thoughts in alcohol. As fun as drinking is, I don't care anymore. Our focus is on our future. Edit Gilded. Finally got something out of this relationship. Thank you.
It's interesting how relationships evolve over time. That shift from wild nights to sharing quiet moments really says a lot. Your perspective on what keeps love strong, joking and being friends, makes sense. It sounds like you've both got a solid foundation. Plus, finding joy in simple things like walks and good conversation shows where your priorities are now. Congratulations on the pregnancy too. Clearly, you both have something special going on.
Communication is key. Arguments suck, but sometimes it's the only way to reach some measure of ground that you can both stand on comfortably. You have to be happy as people before you can truly be happy as a couple. Being their crutch sometimes is okay, but a person has to know how to stand on their own as well. Encourage each other to go out and do things that don't revolve around the other, apart from the obvious things like go to school, work, family gatherings, what have you. Hobbies, friends, etc. It's good to have things you can both bond over, of course, but you want to be your own person as opposed to just one being, if that makes any sense. Lastly, some things aren't meant to be forever. People change, with or without you. Here today, gone tomorrow. Though, that doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be without them. Just maybe you won't be the same people you were before. Me today is not me from 5 years ago, and the same can said about her. We're damn near strangers to our old selves. So yeah, change.
It's true that communication is important. I've had my share of arguments with friends, but those moments made us stronger. We learned to support each other's growth, which sometimes meant doing our own thing. It's weird how people change, right? The person I was years ago feels distant. My friend and I have evolved, and while we still connect, we're not the same. Change is part of life, and that's okay.
Realistically, relationships are not always 50-50ths. Sometimes your partner is not going to be able, physically, emotionally, whatever, to give everything their all, and they're going to need you to pick up the slack. Sometimes you're going to need them to. If one person is always the one putting in more effort, though, that is a problem.
That's pretty true. I remember a time when a friend was going through a rough patch. They really needed support, and I helped out more than usual. But it wasn't a one-sided deal. Later, when I had my issues, they returned the favor. It's about balance. If one person is always giving more, it just creates tension. Relationships take work, and it's not always perfectly equal.
Don't settle. Don't move in with someone when your relationship is rocky. Don't let someone move into your place on your property without a contract stating that they claim no ownership. According to my lawyer, it no longer matters if you're married or not. Don't hold on, assuming that a troubled person will get help/change. Don't put off breaking up because you don't want to hurt their feelings or because you're too cowardly to make a big change. Eventually, you'll do it, so just do it. How is it going to feel if you wait months or years while both of you invest emotions and time in a failed relationship? Don't be with someone who doesn't accept your priorities or the amount of time you're willing to spend with them. Having a constant tug-of-war with someone over your time/attention is not healthy. They don't respect what you want for your life, and you'll never be happy.
I've seen friends get into these messy situations where they ignore the signs. One buddy moved in with his girlfriend even though they were fighting a lot. It went downhill fast. They both wasted time thinking things would change. Another friend stayed in a bad relationship, always prioritizing their partner over themselves. It just dragged on. Sometimes cutting ties is the best way to find your own happiness. Don't wait too long to make those choices.
1. If you think you love them but you're not quite sure, you don't. 2. If you don't like kissing them, get out. 3. If they refuse to ever take blame for their actions, that is toxic, not stubborn. 4. If they get upset and jealous over your successes without being proud and happy for you, they are wrong for you. 5. If you're in a long-term relationship and are mortified at a future with them, especially when you know they are excited for a future with you, break it off. 6. If you're normally a sexual person but have no sexual desire towards your partner, you'll be better as friends. I was in a bad relationship for a good few years.
Sounds like you've been through some tough stuff. It's hard to see those signs when you're deep in it. Relationships should feel good, not make you question everything. I guess you realize eventually that it's better to be single than with someone who pulls you down. Getting out was probably a solid choice. It's good to reflect and learn what you want next time. Better to move forward and find what really works for you.
Society essentially prohibits men from showing vulnerability and insecurity. It was jarring, to say the least, to talk with my boyfriend and see him cry from frustration or a sense of despair. My first reaction was almost disgust, and catching this reaction disturbed me. I never want my partner to feel like he can't talk to me or rely on me. Also, never stop learning about each other. I've been dating my boyfriend over 5 years, and I still learn new things and see different sides of him. Make sure you both retain your own identities and keep some hobbies separate. Smiley face.
It's interesting how we expect men to stay strong all the time. I once saw a friend break down during a tough moment, and it was a reminder that vulnerability is human. At first, I didn't know how to react, but it opened up a deeper conversation between us. Relationships grow when you share those sides. Keeping some hobbies apart helps too. It's good to have your own space.
Communication is huge and so important. Trust is even more necessary than you already think. You have to hold trust that your partner will let you know if they are unhappy with something. You have to hold trust that your partner will tell you what she needs from you. You have to hold trust that your partner is with you because they really do want to be with you. And that all comes back to communication. And obviously communication goes both ways.
Yeah, I get that. I had a friend who struggled with this in a relationship. They always assumed their partner knew what they wanted or needed, but it never worked out. Things got messy until they finally sat down and talked it out. It turned out they both had unspoken expectations. Once they communicated better, their trust grew, and things improved a lot. Simple, but it made a big difference.
If you feel like you can't be completely honest with them, they're not a good match for you. And not being a good match is a perfectly good reason to break up. You don't need to wait for a big fight or other event. And you also don't need them to agree with you that it's a good reason to break up.
It's true that if you can't be honest, it just won't work out. I had a friend who struggled with this in a relationship. She was always holding back how she felt. Eventually, she realized it wasn't worth it and decided to end things. It wasn't dramatic. Just a quiet understanding that sometimes it's better to part ways when the connection isn't right. It was tough for her, but she felt relieved afterward.
That most fights are completely unnecessary. I have had relationships where we fought constantly about nonsense because we just weren't happy. Now I am in a happy and healthy relationship, and we very, very rarely fight. Some people argue that's unhealthy, but honestly, we just care about each other more than fighting about whose turn it is to do laundry. Ask yourself if it will matter in a year or a month or hell even a week. Usually it won't. Let go, mate.
It's true. I've been in that cycle of pointless arguments too. It's draining, and it really doesn't resolve anything. With my current partner, we focus on understanding rather than arguing. It makes a difference. We've learned to let the small stuff go, and it helps keep the relationship strong. Life's too short to sweat the little things. Just focus on what really matters.
People can say they love you all day long, but if they treat you like shit, they don't love you. If they make you sad, ignore your concerns, manipulate you, lie to you, etc., they do not love you, and you shouldn't waste your time with them. You can analyze and make excuses all day, but it ain't that deep, fam. If they act like they don't care, they genuinely do not care.
I've seen this in friendships. A buddy of mine stuck around someone who constantly put him down. He made excuses for their behavior, thinking it would change. Eventually, he realized that love shouldn't feel like a burden. Once he cut ties, he felt a weight lifted. It taught him that real friendships bring support, not stress. Knowing your worth is key, and sometimes you just have to walk away.
Take a good long look at yourself if you're having problems with meaningful relationships. If a lot of relationships fail, the most common factor is yourself. If you change for yourself, and actually change. Don't just wear a change as a facade to mask who you are to other people. All you're doing is masquerading, and it becomes tiring for you, and will inevitably lead to a failure in the relationship when their discovery of who you really are versus who you pretended to be is too much. Don't get involved with people that chronically and constantly need to be saved. They never stay saved. You can never fix them. Only they can do that for themselves.
It's true. I've had friendships where I thought I could fix everything for someone. It never worked out. They'd lean on me, but when they didn't change, it got exhausting. I realized I was pretending too, wearing a mask to fit in. In the end, it's about being real and not saving everyone all the time. You can't carry their weight, and sometimes, you just need to focus on yourself.
First and foremost, be happy being single. Work on yourself. Find out who you are and what you like. Any relationship will just be a bonus. Communicate and be honest. To yourself and to your partner. Got doubts? Talk about it. Don't make impulsive, emotional decision, but don't make cold, calculated, rational decision either. If anything, go with your gut feeling. Personally, have a backup plan. Make sure the bases are covered. Housing, finances. Don't get in the position where you're dependent on the other. It'll skew your ability to make decisions. Brothers before hoes. Seriously, don't set aside your friends. They've always been there for you. Keep being there for them. Never settle for less than the one you see yourself getting old with. Never. And I mean never stick your dick in crazy.
This reminds me of a buddy who dated someone a bit too wild. He ignored all the signs because he was caught up in the thrill. Eventually, it spiraled into some serious drama. After that, he focused on himself, figured out what he wanted, and learned the importance of communication. Now he knows to trust his gut and keep his friends close. It's a lesson about not losing yourself in a relationship.
Closure is a tricky thing. A lot of the lingering pain after a relationship can come from feeling like you didn't get that sense of closure, things that have been left unsaid. I kept thinking if I did this one thing, or said this certain something to her, or had this specific conversation, it would be the perfect bow to put on our past relationship and I could move on. But that feeling never happened. And it's because of one thing. If you're still depending on them for anything, you're still in a relationship mindset. And that includes getting closure. You can't move on if you still depend on the other person for things that are important to you. Closure comes from yourself. You're getting back into single mode, and only you can do that. It can't hinge on you former so. And how you specifically do that depends on, it can be tough because, unlike in the movies, credits don't roll after we've had our moment of revelation. You have to stick with it. Healing is a process. And stuff.
It makes sense. I used to think I needed closure too, just to put everything in a neat package. I realized later that it's really about letting go myself. I spent time trying to find the right words or moments, but it only dragged me back into those feelings. I had to shift my focus to my own healing. It's not easy, but it's necessary if you want to move forward.
From my 3 serious relationships, I've learned 3 major lessons. Number 1, kissing a gay guy, it does not make him like girls. Even if said gay guy doesn't know he's gay yet. Put in simpler terms, you can't make someone love you back, even if they mean the world to you. Lesson 2, nerdy and weird dudes can become swole-obsessed douchebags, even if your relationship is formed on your shared nerdiness and slight weirdness. Lesson 3, sometimes the person who may be one of your soulmates can drag you down and keep you from being the person that you need to be, or at least strive towards. It's not their fault, they're too wrapped up in their own mental illness to realize it. Man, I sure pick winners, don't I?
It's interesting how relationships can teach you so much. The first one really hits home. You can't force feelings, no matter how much you want to. The second lesson shows how people can change, sometimes in ways you don't expect. And the last one is tough. Sometimes you need to let go to grow. It's a cycle, really. Seems like you've had your fair share of ups and downs.
The word love means different things to different people / at different times. It's okay to be a romantic who falls in love easily. It makes life more interesting. As long as you remember, there is such a thing as a one true love, but not how most people think of it. There's not one person already waiting out there for you. Rather, there are lots of people who / could / be your one. And none of them will be the one unless you put a lot of honest effort into creating a respectful and loving relationship with one of them.
I had a friend who fell in love easily. He thought every crush was the one. Over time, he learned that love isn't about fate but about effort. He built relationships with different people and realized each had something unique to offer. It wasn't one big moment but the little things that mattered. In the end, he understood that love is a journey, not just a destination. It made his experience richer.
Don't be overly clingy. It will most likely push the other person away. Do small, meaningful things for yourself a couple times a week. For example, my husband brings me flowers from work, or he does a load of laundry for me. I make him his favorite dinner, or write a loving note for him to read before he leaves for work. One of the main reasons my first marriage failed was because we stopped caring about things like this. Give them space. Don't overanalyze things they say. Men are usually straight shooters. Ambiguity is rare. But women, they may say something and mean something completely different. Don't be a nag. Support them in every way possible.
Relationships need balance. It's about small gestures that show you care, not clinginess. My friend always surprises his girlfriend with snacks from the store or helps with chores. They communicate openly, avoiding overthinking, which keeps things simple. I remember how my parents had troubles because they forgot these little things. It's clear that support and understanding go a long way in making a connection work. Giving space is just as important.
Discussions will lead to arguments if either person is hungry or tired. If it is agreed early on that, if a fight with yelling starts to arise, to honestly assess the need for sleep or food and take a break from the topic to address these needs. Well, the discussions are much more productive and the relationship is a lot more positive.
This reminds me of a time with a friend. We were deep in a debate about something trivial, but we were both running on empty. The tension was building until we paused, realized we were just hungry. We grabbed some pizza and came back. The conversation was way better after that. It's funny how simple things like food and sleep can change the whole vibe.
Just because your partner doesn't like something doesn't mean you have to dislike it. There is nothing wrong with having differing opinions. I found towards the end of my last relationship that I was just agreeing with my partner to keep the peace, but in the end it just makes things boring. Be yourself and say what you feel.
I get that. It can be easy to just go along with what your partner likes. I did it myself once, just to avoid conflict. But it led to a lot of boredom and frustration. It's important to express your own opinions and interests. Keeping things interesting means being true to yourself. Everyone has their own tastes, and that's okay. It adds depth to a relationship, rather than just agreeing all the time.
Learn to be comfortable naked in a non-sexual way together. If you can do that, you'll be much closer. When your so says something is cool, or that they want it, take a physical note somewhere, and when you're struggling to think of gifts for each other, you'll have a list. Also give each your so gifts at random times. It can sometimes mean more than an expected gift at an important occasion. Learn to be happy alone before committing to a relationship. You'll be less likely to be searching for a so out of loneliness if they don't like pizza. That's a red flag edit. Write down your inside jokes so you can remember them months later.
I had a friend who always noted down things their partner liked. Random gifts were their thing. One time, they gifted a small cactus just because they remembered the partner mentioned they liked them a while back. It was thoughtful and unexpected. We joked about how a partner not liking pizza is a clear sign. But the best part was them documenting inside jokes. It kept the laughter going even months later.
My last relationship ended horrifically. It's a very long story, but the switch finally went on in my head when he hurt our dog. Still in denial. I looked up at him 100%, expecting that he would snap out of his rage and realize what he'd done, and done the "oh shit, I'm so sorry, are you okay?" thing. But the look he gave me, dealing with the trauma of that relationship, I couldn't understand how he could be so filled with hate and rage that he was more interested in being right than admitting that he'd hurt her on purpose. That he could hurt this dog that he loved so very much, but needed to be right so badly that it totally overrode everything inside of him. Then I realized that I was also talking about me, that his rage and self-interest was more valuable to him than I would ever be. It really helped me to realize that it wasn't about me at all. In case you're wondering, yes, I left and took both the dog and cat, and he's never going to see them again.
It's tough when a relationship shows its true colors. Understanding that someone could prioritize their ego over the well-being of a pet really puts things in perspective. The moment you realize it's not about you, but their issues, can be freeing. You chose to protect yourself and your pets instead of sticking around for someone who can't see what's important. That must have been a hard but necessary decision. Glad you found clarity.
No single relationship can fulfill you completely. Your so cannot be your everything all the time, and that's okay. I once heard that if your so fulfills 20% of your needs, you're in a good, healthy relationship. Make time for friends and family, because sometimes you just need a night out with the guys/ladies, or a good prank with your siblings, or an hour of gushing emotions to your mom. When you figure out that your partner can't be your best friend, lover, caretaker, problem fixer, adventure maker, listening ear, voice of reason, and spontaneous romantic crazy person all at the same time all the time, a lot of problems will go away.
That's pretty relatable. We often expect too much from our partners. It's refreshing to realize that it's okay to rely on friends or family for support or fun. Having different people in your life for different needs keeps things balanced. I think it also strengthens relationships by giving space for personal growth. Just hanging out with friends or family can remind you of who you are outside of that romantic bubble.
Friendships. If their face expression doesn't match their words, run. For X, you tell them how you got promoted, where you got the highest score in your class, or how you graduated Y honors. And they say, "I'm so happy for you," but you can clearly see something's not right when their face is actually scowling or showing jealousy. Run. Toxic friendships consume too much energy and time, and they make you question everything, including yourself. They make you insecure, and you know you deserve a lot better. Winky face.
I've been in that situation before. I had a friend who would say all the right things, but you could see the envy written all over their face. It's exhausting. I realized it wasn't worth it and decided to cut ties. Surrounding yourself with genuine people makes a huge difference. It's all about keeping the good energy around and knowing your worth. You shouldn't have to second-guess yourself in friendships.
Never take anything for granted, and life can completely change in a single day. My girlfriend got pregnant, so I promised her to be by her side forever for her and her child. Just a few months later, I lost my child and my fiancé, and even got laid off from my job. I went from the happiest time in my life to the lowest in just a few months.
Life can be really unpredictable. I had a close friend who went through something similar. He was excited about becoming a dad, but then faced a tragedy that took everything away. He lost his partner and his job in a matter of months. It was tough to watch him go from being so happy to feeling completely lost. It's a reminder that everything can change in an instant.
If they won't date you, no matter what they say the reason is, they just aren't that into you. It doesn't matter if they're busy, or going through a lot of shit, or not interested in a relationship right now. Even if they say maybe later. The only thing to take away is they don't want to date you. And know your own situation is not different.
I've been there before. You think you're the exception, but it turns out you're not. A friend of mine kept chasing someone who gave excuses. Eventually, reality hit. They just weren't into it. It stings, but it's a reminder to let go and move on. No need to chase someone who doesn't want to be caught. It's part of life, really. Just have to focus on what's next.
First girlfriend. Don't trust everyone, but still forgive. Second girlfriend. Forgive, but also let things go and stop keeping things locked up. Say your actual thoughts and don't be afraid of them. Third girlfriend. Yeah, okay. Stop dating girls at Young You Idiot. And probably should stop trying to find one online. It's not working.
It's interesting how relationships can serve as lessons. My first girlfriend taught me a lot about trust and forgiveness. The second one emphasized the importance of expressing feelings. Then, the third one was like a reality check, pointing out my patterns. It's all about growth, and sometimes you need a friend to help you see things clearly. It's a journey, figuring things out along the way.
That you should never read or listen to any article about things to never or always do in a relationship. You can fall in love multiple times, If you have a gut feeling they're hiding something, then they're hiding something. If you're a jealous person, then date someone who doesn't do shit that makes you jealous. If his friends don't like you, then it's seriously just not worth it. Once a cheater, always a cheater. People don't change. If they have a best friend of the opposite sex, shut that shit down ASAP or be prepared to be cheated on. Things that bothered you initially will bother you forever. Date someone who is nice to you. If they aren't ready, they never will be while they are with you.
I've seen a friend ignore all this advice and end up in a rough spot. He was convinced he could change his girl, but she kept hitting him up with her best friend. He thought it was fine until it wasn't. Trust issues grew, and eventually he got hurt. It's wild how simple things can save you heartache, yet some people just won't listen. Hope he learns for next time.
Love doesn't mean always being happy with the other person. Sometimes, it means I don't even like you that much. The question is it worth it? I think a lot of marriages fail because people expect to be happy with each other for the next 40+ years, and when it doesn't go that way, they bail. Dig in, deal, keep moving forward.
Relationships are complex. It's not always about constant happiness. My friend went through a rough patch where they struggled to even like their partner. Instead of leaving, they chose to work through it. It wasn't easy, but they learned a lot about each other. They realized that commitment sometimes means standing by each other even when things are tough. It's about the long haul, not just fleeting moments of joy.
1. I should apply myself more. 2. I am worth being saved too. 3. There are people attached to the life I'm dating. 4. If you try too hard successfully, they might fall in love with you. 5. I could be a real asshole sometimes. 6a. I have a right to stand up for myself. 6.3. Everything I've won in the past can leave me wanting more. 6.6. I'm not a sexual god just from knowing things. 6.9. But I'm not a wet noodle, and I am desirable. 6b. I will do anything for her.
So, a friend of mine had this realization about relationships. He figured out he needed to focus on himself more. He also acknowledged that he's worth saving too, not just the other person. There were others in the picture, which made things complicated. He sometimes pushed too hard to impress, and it backfired. He admitted he's tough on himself and can come off as an asshole. But in the end, he's willing to do anything for her.
If you're wrong about something, admit it. Nobody wants to hear, well, technically I said. When they're upset, just say you're right. I shouldn't have done/said that. It was wrong and I'm sorry. It makes things so much easier. If someone tells you, I'm not good enough for you, believe them. Emotions aren't rational. Don't try and reason with emotions when tensions are high. Try and appeal to them until things settle down, and then reason with them. If your partner is upset about something and you don't think they should be, spend time calming them down and showing them that you respect their feelings. Once they're calm, you can have a more rational discussion about the situation.
I remember a time when a friend messed up, and instead of making excuses, he just owned it. It felt refreshing. Also, when someone close to me said they weren't good enough, I just listened. Emotions ran high, but once we took a step back, we talked it through. No need for logic right away. Just being there made all the difference. It's crucial to acknowledge feelings first.
You can do everything right, communicate often, love each other immensely, and sometimes things still don't work out. It doesn't mean you had a shitty relationship or there wasn't a connection. Sometimes people come into your life for certain reasons. Maybe the wires get crossed and you fall in love. At the end of the day, you learn from those experiences. Learn about yourself, what you want, what are things you're willing to tolerate, non-negotiables. Hopefully you both become better people for having had the opportunity to be in each other's lives. There will always be that love there, but sometimes the real key is learning when to move on.
That's pretty relatable. I've had a friendship that felt really strong, but we drifted apart over time. We tried to make it work, talked a lot, but it wasn't enough. Looking back, I learned a lot about what I value in relationships and myself. It wasn't a bad experience, just a reminder that sometimes the best thing you can do is let go and grow. The memories linger, but so does the growth.
Please consider subscribing if you enjoyed. Love.